Call Don now, 682-1270. News Talk 1270 KIML.
News Talk 1270 KIML. Don Carpenter Show. Welcome back, 7:07. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the Charleston, South Carolina shooting. And I'm sure most of you have already heard what happened and know a lot of the details. You know a lot of the responses yesterday. I know by the afternoon, Hannity was covering it pretty well. I mean, I think my take might be a little bit different, but we'll get to that in a second. But just to kind of get you up to date on the latest, and actually this is a blurb from CNN. This is kind of a timeline. The man suspected of killing 9 people Wednesday night at a historic African-American church in Charleston, South Carolina, was arrested Thursday morning. He was arrested, I'd say probably, it was 10:43 a.m. Eastern time. He was arrested 245 miles away in Shelby, North Carolina. So he got a good distance away before he was caught. And luckily, a couple that runs a flower shop managed to see him, and they're the ones that actually called the police in North Carolina, and he was pulled over. They saw his car. He was driving a Hyundai car of some sort. Okay, so Dylan Roof of Lexington, South Carolina, was taken into custody without incident shortly before 11 a.m. Shelby police said in a statement, authorities got a call from a business about a possible sighting of the suspect. That was the flower shop. 10:43 a.m., officers saw the suspect's vehicle and stopped it at 10:44 a.m. Dylan Roof was the vehicle's only occupant. He was armed with a gun when he was arrested, according to law enforcement. It is not clear if it's the same firearm used in the shooting. Senior law enforcement source told CNN the suspect's father had recently bought him a .45 caliber pistol for his 21st birthday in April. Okay, let's talk about this pistol for a second. Okay. Dylan Roof was arrested for drug charges in April. Actually, let me see the exact date. I had his mugshot from April. Let's see if I can find the original mugshot again. Because he was arrested in April, and it was also his 21st birthday. Let's see. His 21st birthday is when he got the pistol. Let's see if I can find it here. If I can't find it quick enough, I'll let's see. Is this it? Okay. He was arrested in Lexington County, South Carolina, 4/26/15. He was already 21. So I don't know if he was already under arrest when the father bought the pistol for him. If he had been arrested and was awaiting a trial on these charges when the pistol was bought for him, that's an illegal purchase. That's the point I was trying to get to at that. It was an illegal purchase. Now, also, if the father knew that he was, was a regular user of drugs, that's also an illegal purchase. However, it's not illegal to purchase a pistol for someone, as a gift. I mean, you can do that. Otherwise, this purchase was probably legal. It may or may not have been. I'm sure the local police are looking into that because I mean, the father had to have known that this guy had a screw loose. I mean, you can tell by looking at him that he has a screw loose. He's running around wearing jackets with the Rhodesia flag and the South Africa flag, the old South Africa, the apartheid version. He's running around wearing jackets with that. He has the serial killer haircut. He got that blank look in his eyes. Probably not a good idea to give someone like that a gun as a gift. But it might not have been illegal. And we'll have to wait and see on that. So once he was caught, he was taken to the county lockup. I guess he's getting a bond hearing today. They won't give him bail. There can't be any way he'll ever be able to bail out and await trial on this. Also, he'll have to be extradited from North Carolina to South Carolina. That could probably take a couple weeks. So that's another thing. I mean, this is going to be a process that's going to take a long time. The main thing I wanted to talk about, though, I mean, I think pretty much everyone on the planet will agree that this is an evil act. This is something, just the doings of a madman. This is obviously a very disturbed person that would do something like that. So talking about that really isn't the best way to look at this. I do want to take a look at how the media responded to this and how some of our elected officials responded to this, and some former elected officials as well. I think that's a very important story anytime something like this happens, because the response is always predictable, and it happens faster and faster every time. When Sandy Hook happened, another terrible tragedy, it took a few hours before the gun control nuts started doing what they do. However, this time it was immediate, before the bodies were cold. And you'll have to excuse me if I get a little fired up on this one, but the entire day yesterday, looking at how certain media outlets and certain elected officials were responding, my blood pressure must have been through the roof all day. So all of that in mind, I just want you to hear one thing. This is an old clip. This is Rahm Emanuel in 2008, and keep this in mind.
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste. And what I mean by that, it's an opportunity to do things that you think you could not do before.
And I'm sure you've all heard that clip. It's an opportunity to do things you could not do before. And the president even admitted that in his speech yesterday. The president admitted that. And here's a couple clips from the president's short speech before he hopped on a plane to fly to California for a fundraiser.
This morning, I spoke with, and Vice President Biden spoke with Mayor Joe Riley and other leaders at Charleston to express our deep sorrow over the senseless murders that took place last night. Michelle and I know several members of Emmanuel AME Church. We knew their pastor, Reverend Clementa Pickney, who, along with 8 others, gathered in prayer and fellowship and was murdered last night. And to say our thoughts and prayers are with them and their families and their community doesn't say enough to convey the heartache and the sadness and the anger that we feel.
Okay, so I mean, the words were all right. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the words there. It was a little wooden. It was a little plasticky, a little detached, and you can't know someone's state of mind in a situation like that. But it seemed a little. We'll just say wooden. That's the best way to describe it. However, the president did get a little more excited. I don't want to say excited. I'll say the president did get a little bit more animated when he got to the part that he really wanted to get to. Just seconds later, by the way. I mean, that was all of the sympathy part of the speech. Pretty much the rest of it was like this.
I've had to make statements like this too many times. Communities like this have had to endure tragedies like this too many times. We don't have all the facts, but we do know that, once again, innocent people were killed in part because someone who wanted to inflict harm had no trouble getting their hands on a gun.
And immediately, right to the guns. And every single time we've had one of these terrible tragedies, it immediately, and faster every time. It was a couple hours, and within minutes, the surrogates of the president were immediately blaming this on a lack of gun control. Immediately. Meanwhile, the state of South Carolina, the way their laws are written, it is illegal to carry a weapon in a church without permission, express permission from the church. And this church did not allow carry. So, and again, of course, this isn't about the .45 caliber pistol that this little sissy was, and that's what he is. He's a little sissy. Let's call this guy what he is. He's a coward. He's a little sissy. Sitting in a church for an hour praying with these people and then executing them. That's not how a man acts. So let's not mince words. This guy's a little sissy. He's a little coward. And he didn't follow the rules. These rules that prevented the law-abiding citizens that attended that church to defend themselves. I guarantee if he even saw someone that was able to provide any kind of resistance, he would have wet his pants, probably would have collapsed on the floor, started crying like a baby. And, of course, the lecture goes on from the president from there. You'll hear. Here's the rest of the lecture.
Now is the time for mourning and for healing. But let's be clear. At some point, we as a country will have to reckon with the fact that this type of mass violence does not happen in other advanced countries. And it is in our power to do something about it. I say that recognizing the politics in this town foreclose a lot of those avenues right now. But it'd be wrong for us not to acknowledge it.
Okay, so basically, right there, the president of the United States says we need to get past this silly mourning business and get right to gun control. Whether you like it or not, you're going to get it. Whether you like it or not, this is what we are going to do. It's under our power, and you have to get used to it. Forget about mourning, and that's beneath the office. I mean, look, I don't like to just beat up the president for the sake of beating up the president. But this is beneath the office. This is beneath the office of dog catcher. Dog catcher shouldn't have been doing this, much less the president of the United States. News Talk 1270 KIML.
Basin Radio News, Fox News, Cowboy State News.
More news than you can shake a stick at.
Don Carpenter on News Talk 1270 KIML.
Chris Brintle.
News Talk 1270 KIML. Don Carpenter Show. Welcome back. 7:30. Chris Brintle joining us, and I'm sure. I don't know how much of you. I know you mainly watch the sports stuff during the day for work. You have to follow sports coverage. How much of the coverage of this Charleston shooting have you seen?
Well, I mean, if you have a TV, you've seen it because it's all over everywhere 24/7 the last couple of days. It's been everywhere. I mean, the media response to this thing, and I take a special interest in how media responds to things. It seems like the part of the media response where the serious reporting is done, where they show grieving parents and grieving family members and that kind of stuff,
it seems like gets shorter and shorter and shorter every time one of these terrible events happens. Mm-hmm. You look back at Sandy Hook a couple years ago, and it took a couple days before the news channels were filled with people that wanted to strip the Second Amendment and all that kind of stuff. It was within a couple hours this time.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I don't know what to make of that. I mean, is it just that they're more bold, or do they think that what they're doing is working?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. You have the leeches, basically, on the left that'll use anything and exploit any tragedy. And don't get me wrong, I do think that they mean well. I legitimately think that some people think, hey, if we just took the guns out of everybody's hands, no one would have guns. Well, even the criminals wouldn't have them. They really think that because of ignorance or whatever it may be. Yeah. But I think most of the time their heart's in the right place. They can just have leeches that just want to take guns from everybody and they'll exploit anything. It's exactly what's going on here. I also blame some of the media, on both sides, by the way, that they immediately, like you said, it was a shorter amount of time. They showed it was the initial tragedy where you just report the news. You showed the aftermath, the grief, and then it was quick. And now when they talk to politicians, they're asking them questions on the left and right on every news channel about what somebody else said about gun controls, basically gossip, or what somebody else said about race. I'm not sure that's news. I'm not sure if I'm talking to the governor of South Carolina, or a senator or a state senator of South Carolina, or a congressman. I'm not sure I'm going to talk about what somebody else said about gun control. Yeah. I think you're supposed to talk to them about the tragedy and the aftermath of the tragedy. Why are we trying to drum up, first off, the race thing? We're trying to drum that up, okay, and then the gun control issue comes up. And now, I do know, though, that there are a few people, mostly on the left, that have started that talk themselves, the race and the gun control. But at the same time, some of that stuff can be kind of ignored. Some of the stupidity can be ignored.
Yeah. Well, and I have so many examples from yesterday. And what I think happened is a few people, and let's be honest, the president immediately going to gun control. That put people on the right on the defensive.
Well, and it should.
It absolutely should. And I think that's how it got to be nothing but back and forth on the Second Amendment, and to a lesser extent, race. There's not a whole lot of back and forth for race. I think pretty much everybody agrees this kid was a white nationalist. He was a white power idiot. Looking at the jacket with
he was a drug addict.
Oh, he's a drug addict too. Yeah. So he's a drug addict. He's a racist, and I don't throw the term racist out a lot. I mean, when somebody says something on TV or on the radio and it's insensitive, I don't throw the word racist out very much. But when you wear a jacket with a Rhodesia flag and a apartheid South Africa flag, that's a pretty clear sign that you're racist. I mean, back when I was younger, we had skinheads. Where I lived, we had skinheads, and they would wear the big Doc Marten boots with the white laces for white power or the red laces for Nazis, and they were pretty easy to spot. They had shaved heads, tattoos, and they wore the boots with the laces. So they advertised what they are. I guess this with the flags. I guess that's what it is these days. I mean, I know. I actually knew someone once that had stuff with Palestinian flags all over it, and it was a clear sign. I mean, this person hated Jews. I mean,
right.
I know it for a fact. I've heard all kinds of terrible things from this person, so not coincidentally, she was a pretty high Democrat in the Maryland Party, but that's another story.
That's interesting.
So yeah, I know. Interesting, very interesting.
Yeah.
All Palestinian flags everywhere. But I mean, I guess this kid with his Rhodesia and South Africa flags were that's the symbol now to show that you're a white nationalist. And instead of looking into that, it immediately went to gun control. And he didn't use an assault rifle, even though there's no such thing as an assault rifle. It's just a rifle. He didn't use high-capacity magazines. He didn't use a flamethrower. He didn't use any of these terrible weapons of mass destruction that we hear scary stories about. He used an old-fashioned .45 pistol, the kind that the kind that's been in service for over 100 years. So, and it may or may not have been bought illegally for him by a family member. I don't know the exact date, but his birthday was in April.
Well, I guess the report is his dad got it for him.
Yeah,
or something like that.
And it might have been after he was already arrested for drugs.
Yeah, and also
which would have made it illegal.
The other part of the drug issue was the fact not only was he a drug addict, I don't know exactly what he was on, but he was also on some, psychiatric medication. Apparently he's had some issues. I don't know exactly what it was, but he was on some psychotic drugs as well. And actually, that's the part I wanted to ask you about. This is the part I wanted to ask you about, because you're a purveyor of InfoWars. I know you're a purveyor of InfoWars. So let's go there on occasion.
Yeah, well,
because honestly, as crazy as most of the stuff is on the InfoWars site, let's be honest,
some of it's good stuff.
This case here in South Carolina is a good example, for the most part, of something that's being covered well. They cover a lot of things well, and it's mostly the journalists that's not opinionated journalism. Right. It's like they're actual journalists,
right? Okay, so
for that reason, they do a decent job on something.
So they had a big story yesterday that this shooter was likely on some SSRI antidepressant drugs, which, every time one of these stories comes up, it's almost always the same story. It's some little bipolar, little skinny, scrawny white kid
with bad haircut,
with a bad haircut and dead eyes. I mean, they have problems, and he's a little sissy. I'm not exactly. I'm going to use that word a million times today. He's a little sissy. I mean, that's the nicest word I can use for him.
That's a cowardly attack.
It's very cowardly, and there is the possibility that these medications might lead people to do this kind of stuff. I mean, if you look at the warnings on some of these medications, suicidal thoughts come up a lot as far as a very rare side effect, but obviously a serious one. It's not a stretch that it could not be suicidal. It could be homicidal thoughts and bursts of aggression and that kind of stuff.
It's just like any antidepressant pill where when they run those commercials, they have to tell you that, if you're under 18, don't take that because it causes suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
So wait, if you're 19, it doesn't? It's kind of weird.
There are all kinds of drugs that have that side effect, Accutane and that kind of stuff. Now, I'd be willing to have that discussion, and I think that is a discussion we need to have, but it needs to be done in a scientific way. InfoWars, getting back to InfoWars, doesn't help when their story is just filled with posts from message boards. The entire story is just such and such user on such and such website said it made his wife terribly aggressive. I mean, that's not science. We need to have real scientific studies into I'm sure they're being done. Right. This is a discussion that needs to be had, but when you have it in a way that's just all anecdotal evidence, it's just what some person on the internet says. You end up with a situation where people think that this anecdotal evidence that somebody posted on the internet is the truth. I mean, people trust website. I mean, that's as sad as it is. A lot of people will only go to one website or one TV channel or one radio station for their. Well, they should stay at one radio station. They should stay here.
1270.
Yeah, they should definitely stay here on the radio. But you should go to more than one website for your news. And but most people don't do that. And what they do is they go and they see this InfoWars story that tells about this drug that this kid took, and they just see these anecdotal stories and they think it's the truth.
But sometimes, I don't know, I kind of disagree in the sense that sometimes you have to fight fire with fire, and the other side, it's the same thing. There's going to be, they'd post a story about how the medicine did good for someone.
Well,
and
that's what we need. We need a discussion with scientific studies when they do real double-blind placebo studies where they just like the testing when they made these drugs, they need to test those, and they need to do it on a wide enough scale so that we know the results, and that's a discussion we need to have though with these drugs. I mean, it can't be a coincidence that all of these kids are on these drugs.
Yeah, but
they're also usually all bipolar or suffering from schizophrenia or some other kind of mental illness. So is that the problem, or is the drug the problem? And a scientific study can sort that out.
We're talking about the media and how they're wrong on so many things, because also you have the other aspect of it where it's like, oh, we need to have a national conversation on mental health. Well, we already have, and we have 27 new diagnoses. That's just a round number I thought of. I don't know how many. I don't. That's not really helping. All that does is that puts you in the same web, because all that does is, so you're this now, you're whatever, and then we're going to give you meds, the same meds he's on. So I don't see how that helps. And just the fear mongering, I think, is the word. No matter if you're talking about race, no matter if you're talking about getting guns off the streets, no matter if you're talking about the pills, or you're talking about having a discussion about mental health or what could have been done to prevent it, it's all fear-mongering, and I'm sick of it. When the reality is the story, a psychopath, regardless or not what he was called or what drugs he was on, a psychopath went on a murderous rampage. And that's the story.
And that kind of thing is never going to go away.
And you cannot stop people from being psycho.
From the beginning of time, some caveman went into a cave and beat a bunch of cavemen to death with a dinosaur bone.
Right.
Even though they didn't exist at the same time, but
I see what you're saying. A rock or something. A big boulder.
Yeah. But I mean, it's happened from the beginning of time. People kill people. There are just some people on the earth that are evil, and no amount of laws, no amount of drugs, no amount of mental hospitals is going to completely prevent that.
Right.
And we just need to accept that and give ourselves the tools to be as safe as possible without completely destroying our system just because something like this happens once in a while.
Well said.
Yeah. Okay, let's take a break. What do we have going on in sports?
Well, we have news on Larry Nance Jr. and also some national news.
Okay, sounds good. We'll see you in an hour. News Talk 1270 KIML.
What you gonna do, brother, when Don Carpenter runs wild on you? KIML, brother.
Welcome back to the final hour of the Don Carpenter Show on News Talk 1270 KIML.
News Talk 1270 KIML. Don Carpenter Show. Welcome back. It's 8:07. Final hour of the show. We're going to spend a little bit more time talking about the reactions to this shooting, this terrible shooting in Charleston, South Carolina. Of course, top of the hour, you just heard the latest. The official charges have been filed. I imagine that it probably won't take too long for this Dylan Roof to be taken back to South Carolina from North Carolina. He was arrested about 245 miles away in North Carolina. I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the reactions. And the one politician that I saw yesterday that really had the most heartfelt reaction was South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley. And it's interesting. I mean, it's her state. I think she knew one of the victims. One of the victims was a state senator. The pastor of the church was a state senator. It was obvious that she was doing everything she could to fight back tears. And I think, look, I mean, I can't even imagine being the governor of a state, being responsible for millions of people, and having something like that happen in one of your largest cities. I mean, it's just mind-blowingly terrible. Let's take a call real quick. News Talk 1270 KIML. You're on the air.
Yeah, I am positive that he's already back in South Carolina. Megyn Kelly reported last night that he waived extradition and they already brought him back in, and then the report there that we heard just a little while ago said that he was going to be appearing in court, so he's got to be back in South Carolina.
Oh, okay. I thought the appearance in court was in the North Carolina court for the extradition. So he waived it and everything, huh?
Yeah, that's what Megyn Kelly said last night.
Oh, okay. Well, that was quick. I imagine in a case like this, they work as quick as they can, though.
Yeah, of course, that's a lot up to him and his lawyers, but evidently he probably thought he'd get more notoriety if he waived it. I don't know. Well,
as sad as it is, you're probably right. I actually saw part of the police statement, I guess, that he gave to the police. A part of that was released, and one of the quotes said, he almost didn't go through with this because everyone was so nice to him. And
oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, but that goes to show how sick and evil he is.
Exactly.
He goes in, he sits and does Bible study with these people for an hour, and they're terribly nice to him. I mean, you got to imagine you're in that church and this kid shows up and wants to worship with you. Of course, churches have open doors and they welcome everybody, but
sure.
I'm sure they don't see a whole lot of people that look like this kid come in. I mean, that goes to show their character.
Well, who would ever expect somebody to come in and sit through a worship service, a prayer service actually is what it was, and then pull something like that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is one of those things that I think most people could never even conceive of happening.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I just wanted to make you aware of that. I am sure you can check it and see, but from everything I've heard, I'm sure he's already back in South Carolina.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Hey, thanks a lot for the call. Yeah. Okay. So there you go. He's already back. So the court appearance today is actually in Charleston. Then okay, that does make sense. Now that I think about it, it does make sense. I mean, normally these extradition things take a couple weeks, but in a case like this, they get it done because the way extradition works is the governor has to actually petition the governor of the other state to have you released and brought to them. Even if you waive extradition, the governor has to be involved. But in this case, obviously, the governor is right on top of it. So, Nikki Haley, governor of South Carolina. Let's see if I can find her reaction. I mean, it's so heartbreaking. I mean, something like this, and having a personal connection to it. It's just such a hard thing. I mean, for a governor to do, and I mean, you could tell she emotionally wasn't prepared for this, I don't think. So let's see. I think this is the right one.
You know, we woke up today and the heart and soul of South Carolina was broken. And so we have some grieving too. And we've got some pain we have to go through. Parents are having to explain to their kids how they can go to church and feel safe. And that's not something we ever thought we'd deal with. Having said that, we are a strong and faithful state. We love our state, we love our country, and most importantly, we love each other. And I will tell you, there's a lot of prayer in this state. And so you are going to see all of us try and lift these 9 families up in prayer because they need us. These 9 families need us. The Emmanuel AME Church needs us. The AME Church family needs us. And the people of South Carolina need us to come together and be strong for what has happened.
Okay, so I mean, that's a very heartfelt, especially at the beginning. She almost broke down and couldn't even get started. So how do people react to this? Well, as you would expect, people on a certain side of things decided she wasn't being sincere enough. Plus, apparently, she wasn't being white enough as well. Let's see here. Here, just one quote. Yes, Nikki Haley's quote-unquote tearful press conference was phony. Not one tear, just a lot of bad acting. Governor Haley cries as she speaks at the Charleston shooting press conference. Her tears are meaningless as long as she flies the Confederate flag. And this is actually something that is the third rail of attack. I mean, we've already got the gun control attacks. We've got the race attacks. The Confederate flag attacks are starting as well. Nikki Haley would rather appease the racist white masses than show respect for the dead and take the Confederate flag down. Nikki Haley's words are so much trash until she takes that symbol of white supremacy down. And then you get to the just downright racist attacks. Nikki Haley passing for white. The need to feel white is epic. I mean, it's. I'm telling you, and this is all on the internet. I mean, this is a bunch of anonymous cowards sitting behind keyboards on the internet, and this is a big part of why we have absolutely no civility in our discussions today. And for those that aren't familiar with the governor of South Carolina, Nikki Haley, she's of Indian descent. Her parents are from India. Her real name is Nimrata, and then her nickname's Nikki. So she's of Indian descent. That's neither here nor there. But as it goes with these things, as soon as a tragedy happens now, within minutes, anyone that shows any kind of civility and any kind of compassion or sympathy for the victims is immediately attacked as being disingenuous. And of course, the agenda must be pushed at all expense. There's nothing more important to people than the agenda now. And when you have the president of the United States within minutes of this being a big story, immediately, with 30 seconds into his speech, you can't wait a day before you go after the agenda. You can't wait a couple days. I mean, the tone deafness of this and the and just the blatant hypocrisy of this is it's mind blowing. It's mind blowing. And then of course you have a leader of the South Carolina Democratic Party blaming Fox News, and he was on O'Reilly last night, and it's just seriously, Fox News is the reason for this. The Confederate flag's the reason. The guns are the reason. No, the reason is someone decided to go into a church and murder 9 people. Put the responsibility on the person that's responsible. This Dylan Roof, this little sissy, this little coward, and maybe allow people to defend themselves. I guarantee, I'd bet every dollar I'd make for the rest of my life that if someone had been carrying, been allowed to carry, and pulled a weapon on this little coward, he would have wet his pants, he would have rolled up in the fetal position, and he would have started crying. News Talk 1270, KIML. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back.
Listen every Tuesday morning at 9 for the Tuesday Morning Quarterbacks on the Don Carpenter Show. News Talk 1270, KIML. Call Don now, 682-1270. News Talk 1270, KIML.
News Talk 1270, KIML. Don Carpenter Show. We'll get to Chris here in just a second. I just want to remind you, last chance for Father's Day at the Prime Rib. 4 to 9:30 on Father's Day. Dad gets 25% off. You can try out the beef Wellington, braised short ribs. Make your reservations today. You don't want to miss out. Prime Rib, Father's Day, 682-2944. And hang on a second here. I'll get... this is why I need an instant replay machine. I guess I could turn your mic on. Let's see. We'll do this one. Hang on.
Chris Brintle. Chris Brintle.
Yeah, see, I need an instant replay machine. I can just hit the button and your music hits.
Be perfect.
Yeah.
We'll get one of those installed for you or something.
One of these days. One of these days, I'll get one. I can have sound effects. I could have all kinds of stuff. Oh, I'd have all kinds of sound effects if I had an instant replay machine. I gotta work on that. Try to.
You'd probably use those sound effects to drown me out when I come in here.
Well, not you, not you.
Oh, Vic Wright on Tuesday Morning Quarterback. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying anything. Okay, so I actually want to continue with something we did last hour. I mean, I've been talking about this shooting in South Carolina all morning, but it kind of ties with another story from yesterday, and this was kind of it was a little bit lower on the news cycle. It's not a terribly important Supreme Court decision, but the Supreme Court they released their decision yesterday in a case from Texas that said the state of Texas doesn't have to provide specialty plates for the Sons of Confederate Veterans, and it has a Confederate flag on it. Of course, the Confederate flag is also a big thing in South Carolina. It's part of their flag, so it's being made into a political issue, of course. Here's my I don't mind the state being able to choose which of these specialty plates, because usually what happens with a specialty plate is you pay a little bit extra and some of that money goes to whatever organization it is. I don't have a problem in theory with the state being able to choose which ones, because you don't want it going to the KKK or the Black Panthers or something like that. But where do you draw the line? I mean, like it or not, Texas was part of the Confederacy. I don't know. You went to school in Oklahoma, which is it wasn't in the Union at the time, but
it's not part of the South, but it has a South.
Yeah, it has a. Yeah. I mean, it's not. Once you get out of Texas, you don't really have that South vibe that you get in Texas.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure there should be really a line drawn. I don't have a problem with it, with license plate having anything Confederate on there.
Yeah, see.
I don't have a problem with it at all. I feel like a lot of people don't understand the Confederate flag, and if you're one of these people that think the Confederate flag was all about pro-slavery, if you're one of these people that think the Confederate flag was all about racism, And if you think the Confederate flag was about white power, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's just that simple. The Confederate flag was more about that. It's about tradition of the South. The Confederate flag is more about states' rights. Just like the Civil War was actually fought more about states' rights, more about the economy than slavery. Slavery was a late issue. They were already fighting, really, when slavery came up.
Yeah.
And so slavery is basically used as a pawn by Abraham Lincoln. And so I think a lot of people don't understand the flag, and it's a part of a ton of controversy, and I don't know why. And you have people, basically pundits, that are scared. They know exactly what I'm saying. They 100% agree with what I'm saying right now, but they're scared to come out and say it because it's easier just to say, oh, well, why would you fly a Confederate flag? I mean, if you just don't know your history if you think it's racist. And it's just that simple. So I don't care if it's on a flag sitting in front of the Capitol building or part of your state flag. I don't care if it's on a license plate. It's not a racist symbol, so...
Well, and here's the thing. Now, this group is Sons of Confederate Veterans. So these are people whose descendants, or their ancestors, not descendants. That would be backwards. Their ancestors were in the Confederate Army. And look, whatever you think about the Civil War, these people are just trying to honor their family. They're trying to honor the sacrifices that their family made. And I don't mind the Supreme Court's decision saying that the state can do this. What I think is the problem I have with this is that this is the heritage of the state of Texas. And look, I'm not from the South. I've never owned a Confederate flag. It's not part of my heritage. Even funny thing is, I have a great-great-great-grandfather that was from North Carolina, and he fought on the side of the Union in the Civil War. That the county that he lived in was Union loyalist. I mean, and that was in North Carolina, which is obviously part of the South. State seceded, but even people there fought for the Union. So my heritage is the people that fought for the Union. I don't mind people wanting to look back at their heritage. Now, what does kind of annoy me is people don't do this on purpose to make a statement. I think at this point, the Confederate flag has turned into, besides for the people that belong to these Confederate veterans groups, I think it's turned into a symbol of being a redneck and being country and that kind of thing. It's not a defensive symbol. It's just a symbol of somebody that's a redneck. I mean, when I see somebody driving around Gillette, Wyoming, 45-degree north latitude. I mean, this is almost as far north as you can get. Obviously not part of the Confederacy. When I see somebody driving around here with a Confederate flag, I think, well, that's just silly. It doesn't offend me. It doesn't make me mad. I don't think they're racist. I think it's just silly.
No, you're assuming they don't know anything about it.
Well,
that's your assumption.
Again, it's not part of your heritage. I mean, if we were in Mississippi,
it doesn't matter if it's part of your heritage. If you believe in states' rights, or you believe in any of that, then maybe there's something to it. I mean, maybe you'd fly it.
I think most people these days.
What I'm saying is there should be a litmus test of why somebody should have a Confederate flag, just like there should be a litmus test of why somebody should have a United States flag. I mean, there's plenty of people, I'm sure, fly the United States flags loud and proud, yet they don't care about the Constitution, yet they want to steal somebody. They're okay with the government taking money from the haves and giving it to the have-nots, which is completely un-American. I mean, So, yeah, there shouldn't be a litmus test. I don't care what state you're in. If you want to fly it, fly it.
Well, yeah, there's
but I do agree that there's a lot of times they don't. Yeah, it's really just a symbol.
I think most people these days, they don't, just like the people that fly the flag upside down. I know I've seen someone in this area that flies a flag upside down. Now,
and they probably know the meaning, because most people aren't going to fly their flag in this area upside down.
Oh, yeah. Well, they think they know the meaning.
Yeah.
The meaning of an upside down flag is immediate distress. It's not that you aren't happy with the way the country's going, or the country's going down the toilet, or things are really bad. It's like your ship's sinking. It's like,
but don't you think that can be symbolic?
Well,
immediate distress.
But it's not a technically.
Well, who cares
if
it's technical? It's symbolic. So if somebody's flying that flag, they think the country's in dire straits. And we are in dire straits. We live in a socialist nation now. Where they're running our healthcare system. Yeah. They go to war without a declaration of war. They don't care. They commit acts of war just the other day, again in Libya. Nobody's talking about that. We're consumed with the shooting. And yet somebody shouldn't be able to put a flag like that. We are in dire straits.
And again,
it's a symbol we need to save this country.
Again, it's not. I mean, if you want to use the symbolism, you got to get it right, though.
The symbolism is right. What's it mean?
It means immediate distress.
Immediate distress. Immediate distress doesn't mean a ship is going to sink. It can mean that. It can also mean the country is going to sink or the country's drowning. I mean, it's just a symbolic way to interpret it. And this person, I don't know how he means it or how she means it. I don't even know who it is. But for the most part, that's probably what they mean by it. Even those shirts we talked about, that's what they mean by it.
And I'm sure that's exactly well, the shirts, I think they just did it to sell shirts.
Well, yeah, that's true.
The shirt place. I mean, that's not exactly a highly political shirt place. It's just they just put an upside down flag on a shirt. But again, I mean, and again, this is not something that I want people to stop doing, or I just find it silly. Now, as far as the Confederate flag in South Carolina, you're gonna see this a lot today. This is going to be the one today. Yesterday it was gun control, and that's not going to get anywhere. I mean, it's just going to be the same people flapping their gums about gun control, and you'll see Bloomberg groups and the Brady groups fundraising off of it, but it's not going to get anywhere. I mean, it's impossible. You'll see the president lecturing us how we're bad people.
He has.
Oh yeah, well yeah. I mean, you're going to see more of it. You'll see the president again when he's finished playing golf. He'll lecture us again about how we're bad people because we want to protect the Second Amendment.
Is he not shameless? Is President Obama just? He's so out of touch. That was one of the first things he went to after this tragedy.
Well,
it's shameful, really.
He spent. Let's see. Actually, he spent exactly. Let's see. I can tell you exactly how many seconds he spent.
I can always trust you with the stats. I like this.
Well, I have my clips. He spent exactly 20. Oh no, hold on. No, he spent 50 seconds. He spent 50 seconds with condolences, and then the rest of the speech, about 2 minutes, was a lecture on how we need to have more gun control.
Right. The rest of it was anti-Second Amendment propaganda, basically.
Yeah, and it's not going to get anywhere. And even the president admitted that, but he basically told us that we're bad people because we're not going to let him get his way.
I give props to, I think they were talking, I think it was, is it Nikki Haley, South Carolina?
Yeah.
I give props to her because a reporter asked her a question on the president's speech, and she said, you know what, he's going to do what he's going to do. But she didn't want to get political. She didn't get political at all about it. She moved on and started talking about the tragedy itself. I give her props for that, not falling into that political game.
Yeah. Did you see her original press conference
speech? She was in tears.
Yeah. I mean, she's a good person. I mean,
she seems genuine.
Yeah. If that wasn't genuine, that's the best acting job I've ever seen. Because I mean, she was trembling and sweating and everything else.
It gave me chills watching that.
Yeah, and so we have a call. We can take a call real quick. You don't have to put your headphones on. I'll turn the mics off so you can hear it. Well, okay. Well, it's a busy signal, but it just annoys me that this Confederate flag has been. It's going to be turned into the next excuse for, and that's what they're doing. Mm-hmm. Whether they think they are or not, they're making excuses for this killer.
Right.
I mean, it's not because he's evil. It's not because he's sick in the head. It's not because he's a bad person. It's because the Confederate flag, or it's because he had access to a gun, or it's because black people are victimized.
Well, soon it'll be rhetoric. I
even saw Oliver Willis from Media Matters for America, the Soros group. He tried to make it about voting rights.
Oh, I'm sure. They'll do anything.
Well, and, something terrible happens. Well, you must support everything I support because I'm black, too. And that's exactly what he said. He said, we support, if you support the victims, then you have to support, eliminating voter ID laws. I have no idea how he got to that.
Doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense.
I mean, that's a stretch that Plastic Man couldn't even do. I have no idea. I mean, maybe he was already writing an article on voting rights and decided to make it about this shooting, but I have no idea. I mean, it was I was literally speechless when I saw that. I mean, you have no shame. I mean, at least wait a day before you start with this crap.
Yeah, they just use it. That's all these people do is just use it for political gain. They'll use anything. It's really no different, and I'm against the wars, but it's really no different. At the time, I remember when Iraq would first kind of started, and they would use the losing troops, even Afghanistan to an extent, but they would use losing the troops there and have these big stories about it, and really turned it into
countdowns.
Right, and really, they would count them and turn it into anti-war. I'm against the war too, but are you really just going to exploit the death of soldiers?
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure that's right. You know what I mean?
And I lived in Delaware at the time, and I know you're almost out of time here. I lived in Delaware at the time, and the troops that are killed in action are brought into Dover Air Force Base. And it was a big story at the time. These media vultures would be waiting at the gate for the transport plane to land, and they'd just be all over that plane. It was like it was like paparazzi.
Let me tell you something. There's nobody over there right now since Obama's president. Nobody's counting the military people we lose since he's president. You notice that?
Yeah, it's completely shameless. Okay, we'll see you later. News Talk 1270 KIML.
You're listening to Don Carpenter
on Gillette's Heritage Station.
News Talk 1270 KIML. 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 1270 KIML.